Deep within the vast forests of America's national parks lie the blank spaces no map will ever mark. At night, a familiar trail can lead you somewhere no one has ever returned from. Mountain winds can whisper words you were never meant to hear. And in a solitary fire lookout tower, someone or something may be standing just outside, knocking patiently in the dark. Tonight, Rangers of the Dark takes you alongside park rangers into 3 chilling encounters, each inspired by true experiences from the wildest protected lands in the United States. And at the end of the journey, we'll join the Nightmare Investigator to break down the signs and secrets hidden within each tale. So tighten your headlamp, check your radio, and step into the kind of darkness you should never stand in alone. I had been a park ranger for nearly 7 years at Clearwater National Forest, nestled high in the northern mountains of the state. The place was famous for its glassy alpine lakes, endless stretches of pine, and also for stories you wouldn't find on any tourist map. On my first day, the senior ranger told me,
"Out here you'll learn to trust your map. But more important, you'll learn when the map is lying to you."
I laughed it off, thinking it was just a poetic warning about how trails change with the seasons. But after hearing about more than a few disappearances, I began to understand. There are paths out here you're better off ignoring. That late afternoon, our radio crackled with the voice of the dispatcher.
Unit 5, we've got a report of an illegal campfire in the northern restricted zone. Coordinates sent to your GPS. Possible camp setup in a prohibited area.
I checked my watch, 5:42 p.m. June days were long, but in these mountains, night closed in fast. The temperature was already dipping, the scent of pine sap thick in the cool air. I shrugged on my jacket and did a gear check. Flashlight, bear spray, folding knife, portable radio, map. Walking the forest at dusk isn't dangerous, if you know exactly where you are. But those coordinates, they were near a sector that had been closed off from official maps for over 15 years. After close to an hour on foot, I arrived at the marked location and froze. Right before me was a narrow trail, its packed earth floor smooth and flat, flanked on both sides by neat little rock cairns. It was the kind of marking we use for safe established trails. Except, I knew every sanctioned path out here, and I had never seen this one. I knelt to inspect the ground, bone dry, compacted as if walked just hours earlier, despite yesterday's rain leaving the rest of the forest floor damp. The cairns were fresh, no moss, no lichen. A thought flashed through my head. Maybe a group of hikers made their own trail, but how could they have gotten in past the gate? I stepped in. Roughly 30 meters in, the wind simply stopped. No more rustle of pine needles, no distant bird calls, just the sound of my own boots on the mat of fallen needles. I tried a quick radio check. Static fluttered briefly, then the channel cleared. But my compass needle had started to drift lazily, refusing to hold north. 2 cairns ahead, then 3. Each was taller than the last, as if marking an ever more important section of the path. About 200 meters in, the faint smell of wood smoke teased my nose. My pulse quickened. I was close. I lengthened my stride until my flashlight beam swept across a round clearing. A weathered green tent sagged inward, a stone fire ring at its heart. The campfire was cold, only ash and a few blackened pieces of wood left. "Hello? Park Ranger!" I called out. Silence. In the cone of light, an unzipped backpack lay on the ground like it had been dropped mid-use. Food packets and an empty water bottle scattered in the dirt. Tracks led a short way into the trees, then stopped abruptly, vanishing into untouched forest. I turned to head back, deciding to report it in. I had taken maybe 10 paces when another set of footsteps began following, perfectly in sync with mine. When I stopped, they stopped. I spun around, flashbeam cutting through empty air. And that's when I noticed. The 2 cairns closest to me seemed taller now than when I'd first passed them. My skin prickled. I turned away, quickening my pace. Once out of that path, I marked the coordinates on my GPS and headed back fast. The next morning, I took 2 fellow rangers to the spot, but when we arrived, there was nothing. Just dense pine, spongy ground. No trail, no cairns, no clearing. One guy laughed. "Probably just a game trail you stumbled onto." But I knew the difference. Game trails don't sprout neatly built cairns, and they sure don't have abandoned campsites. As we left, a shaft of morning sunlight fell on a tree trunk nearby. Carved into the bark, about eye level, were 3 parallel horizontal lines, partially hidden under moss. I'd seen marks like that in archive records, company trail markers from the logging days of the 1960s. Many such trails had been decommissioned decades ago, and struck from our maps for safety reasons. I said nothing, but a quiet instinct stirred in me: never go back alone. 3 days later, I gave in to the pull. I couldn't stop thinking about that path, those cairns, the footsteps. This time, I went back with 2 colleagues, better equipped, upgraded radios, extra lights, GPS recorders. Yet stepping back onto that trail, everything changed again. Radios hit solid static, unbroken. No contact in or out. The forest air was heavy, the silence thick enough to feel. We found things along the way: an old wool beanie, sun-bleached gloves, a rusted camp mug. None of us recognized them. Items far older than any recent visitor should have been. We made camp before sunset. I stayed awake, listening. The footsteps came back, pacing just outside the firelight, matching my breathing, stopping when I stopped, starting when I shifted. Once my flashlight flickered as though something had darted past. A sudden chill tightened my chest. It wasn't just watching anymore. It was trying to mirror me. The next day, we tried to hike back out, only to find ourselves returning to the same clearing, again and again. No matter which direction we took, we arrived back where we'd started. Voices began calling our names from the trees. Each voice sounded like someone we knew, a sibling, a spouse, but always from just out of sight. I realized this place was a trap, designed to keep us inside. After hours of stubborn navigating, we finally broke through the loop. Staggering and sweat-soaked, but all of us together, we stepped onto a maintained, mapped trail. Instantly, GPS locked on, compass steady, the breeze returned, and the chatter of birds filled the air. It was like waking from a long, bad dream. No one said much on the hike back to the station. We were relieved, but it hung over us. The sense that it let us go. That night, as I sorted my gear, my stomach turned cold. In the smallest pocket of my pack, one I knew I'd zipped tight, lay a single stone. The same pale, smooth kind used to build the cairns on that path. No one had put it there. We'd escaped, but the connection wasn't broken. And next time, it might not let us leave. We made it back to the ranger station just after nightfall. Nobody spoke on the hike in. The sound of gravel under our boots was the only proof we were finally back on familiar ground. Inside the station's small common room, the dim, amber light made each of us look older, more worn than we had that morning. Steam curled from mugs of coffee we barely touched. Mark, usually the loudest of us, sat hunched in the far corner, rubbing his hands together over and over like he was trying to wash something off that wasn't there. I caught him staring at the door more than once, flinching whenever the wind rattled the frame. Sarah kept her pack clutched in her lap. She hadn't opened it since we left the trail, like she was afraid to see what might be inside. Her eyes darted from face to face as though making sure we were still. Us. Javier paced. He tried to laugh it off at first, muttering something about bad directions, but his voice kept cracking. When he finally stopped moving, his breathing slowed and he just stood at the window staring out into the black tree line. I was close enough to hear him whisper, not to us, but to himself.
It knows we got away.
As for me, I emptied my pack to check my gear. The cairn stone I'd found earlier sat alone on the table, faint traces of moss on its surface. It looked harmless, ordinary. But the air in the room felt heavier with it there, like it carried a piece of that place along with us. A sudden tap at the window jolted Sarah's head up. Mark swore under his breath. Javier turned from the glass so quickly his chair toppled. Outside, nothing. Just our distorted reflections in the dark. No one mentioned it, but I knew we were all thinking the same thing. We left the trail, but the trail hadn't left us. The radio crackled softly before the calm, clipped voice of dispatch filled the quiet at Logan Pass.
Unit 3, check the garden wall, switchbacks, markers 1 through 9. Reports of high winds, minor rockfall. Please confirm status as soon as possible. Over.
I set my empty coffee mug on the desk, glancing at my watch. 20:47. In September, night falls fast over the high country of Glacier, especially on the Logan Pass Plateau where the wind carries the bite of distant, ancient ice fields. Unit 3 copies, departing in 5, over. I clipped the radio to my shoulder strap, ran down my checklist: main flashlight, spare headlamp, first aid kit, multi-tool, voice recorder for trail reports, bear spray, trekking pole. The unspoken ranger rule: never go out on the garden wall section when winds top 30 miles per hour, unless you're on night patrol. The moment I stepped out of the ranger station, the wind slapped my face, sharp with pine resin and something cold, old, like glacier ice dust. The station lights receded behind me, a glowing ember swallowed by the black. The Highline trail along the garden wall clings to the mountain's sheer flank. One side, vertical stone; the other, a drop hundreds of feet into blackness. The switchbacks here are notorious: sharp, narrow, sightlines cut short at every bend. Pushing into the heavy fog, I played my beam along small white rock markers at the trail edge, my lifeline in this visibility. Underfoot, gravel and dirt slicked with dew slid beneath my boots. Marker 1, Marker 2, Marker 3. I spoke evenly into my recorder. Garden wall switchbacks, Marker 3 clear, no recent slide or rockfall, over. At Marker 4, sweeping my light across the inner rock wall, I caught something else. Not long, not loud, but there, a breath, quick, cut apart by the wind. I stopped, killed my headlamp, tilted my ear into the dark, a trick that sharpens hearing when your eyes aren't searching. Wind. Mist. Then, back. The chill shot from my neck down my spine. Hoarse voice, close, as if someone had stepped right up behind me. I snapped my light back. A wall of shimmering fog. No one there. I told myself it was just wind threading a rock crevice into a vaguely human sound. We've all been fooled by it. Then at Marker 5, the instant I pivoted into the curve, it came again. Identical cadence, almost warm on my ear. My pulse lurched. I keyed the mic. Logan Pass, I'm at Marker 5. Copy possible human voice on trail. Investigating. Over. Dispatch came back chopped and staticky. Signal degrading. Marker 6 was smothered in that bizarre silence, except for the sensation of being followed, always just at the edge of my light. If it was a goat or a grizzly, I'd be hearing rock scrapes, labored breath. But here, the quiet pressed in. The wind picked up at Marker 7, and the earth smelled freshly torn, like a slope recently sloughed. This time, no, turn back. The voice crawled right up the back of my neck. Don't look down. My heart skipped hard. Rule 1 on these cliffs is don't look down. And yet, hearing it so plain, my head began to tip. The outer talus gave way to a void of pure dark. My beam went down and vanished, as if swallowed. And then, the dark moved. Slow. A pulse like waves under a midnight lake. But thick, heavy, rhythmic, like the breathing of something vast. Every muscle locked. I stepped back, retreating from the edge, cold leaching through my boots. Past Marker 7, I picked up into a near run toward Marker 9, refusing to let my eyes stray toward the drop. When the yellow station lights finally blurred through the fog, my lungs dumped the breath I'd been holding. No one questioned my early return. Patrol complete was enough. The next morning, Lisa from my crew came with me back to Marker 7. Overnight, the outer trail edge was gone. A full yard of dirt and rock sheared away, dropping into an endless void. Lisa leaned out, whistled low.
If you'd leaned out with that light last night...
I just stayed quiet. That night in the bunk room, the wind shifted outside my window. I was half asleep when the 3 words came again, curling into my ear. Don't look down. Lamp on, empty room. But out at the glass, through the whine of air, the sound was still there. I remembered what old Ranger Miller had told me years back. Some nights, the wall talks, tells you to turn back 'cause there's something ahead you can't face, or something ahead that wants to face you. I'd laughed then. I wasn't laughing now. 2 weeks later, I hiked back to Marker 7 in daylight with an audio recorder going. The wind was gentle, the sun hitting the rock. But just as I stepped into the curve, the recorder picked up a strange low register, bassy, breath-like, nearly inaudible to the naked ear. That file still sits on my hard drive. I haven't let anyone else hear it. Highline trails, garden wall, switchbacks are still open to hikers, breathtaking in the sun. But for me, every time I pass marker 7, I don't need the wind. I can still hear that thread of sound unspooling into my mind.
Don't look down.
Night fell faster than I expected as I climbed the creaking wooden stairs up to the Fire Lookout Tower in Bitterroot National Forest, Montana. The tall wooden structure stood firmly on a breezy hilltop, gazing over an endless expanse of pine forest. The air still carried the damp scent of last night's rain. The wind whispered through narrow gaps in the wood. I'm Mark Reynolds, a ranger assigned night duty here for the week. A single shift on the tower meant hours without another soul in sight. Just the clock, the radio, and the forest. My job, watch through the night, detect any sign of wildfire or unusual activity. I set up the entry camera on the frame, clipped my headlamp in place, and settled at the scarred wooden desk by the window. The only sounds were my own breathing and the wind outside the glass. But tonight would not stay this simple. My flashlight beam swept over pines standing silently in the dark. The entry camera showed the base of the tower, quiet and still. I keyed the radio to the main station. Mark at Lookout 4, all clear. Scanning on schedule. Weather fair, light wind. Dispatch's warm, steady voice came back over the static.
Copy, Mark. Update again in 2 hours. Stay safe.
Time ticked on, the metronome heartbeat of the shift, until the mountains outside were swallowed in black. Then, on the camera feed, I caught the briefest movement, a shape sliding past the corner of the entryway. I zoomed in. Nothing but the swaying shadow of a tree. My breath sped up. Around 2 a.m., wrapped in the lonely bubble of the tower, faint knocks began to sound on the wooden deck outside. Even, deliberate, circling the cabin. I knew I wasn't imagining it. The pattern of footsteps tracing around me, yet the door camera showed no figure. Inside, I was alone. On impulse, I tapped 3 slow knocks on the table, and received 3 perfectly timed knocks in reply from outside, as though something unseen was playing a call-and-response game. My heartbeat thudded in my throat. A chill dampened my back. Near dawn, mist coated the window facing the wide valley. There, streaked in the condensation, was a long vertical smear, like a hand dragging down the glass. It was taller than any human could reach while standing on the outer deck. How could someone leave a mark like that without tripping the camera or stepping inside? I stood and listened for the knocks again, but now there was only thick, wet silence. The wind rose, whistling through the lookout tower's seams in a way that almost made words. The tones shifted until I was sure. It was forming a voice. A low, gravelly word came through. Go. I backed away from the window and reached for the radio. This is Mark. I have unexplained activity at Lookout 4. Might need backup sooner rather than later. Over. Dispatch replied quickly, telling me to stay secure until daylight crew arrived. On my next night shift, I tried to treat it as just another watch, but barely had I stepped onto the floor when the circling knocks returned. The same sequence, knocks, my 3-tap reply, and a slower, colder 3 taps back. The wind cut sharper, an iciness that felt like it rooted into my bones. Out there in the dark, I felt a shape just outside my line of sight. Human-like, flickering at the edge of vision. The entry camera stuttered, the feed brightening and darkening erratically. I tried the 3-tap sequence again, but the reply came in a jagged, offbeat pattern, not quite matching me anymore, as if it was purposely breaking the rhythm. My pulse pounded. The entry camera feed snapped to static. My main flashlight flickered twice before stabilizing. The silence pressed down like weight. I began a voice log just to keep myself anchored. Night 3 on shift. Knock phenomenon continues. Shadow presence detected. Source unknown. As dawn broke, the knocking faded away. The camera returned to normal, empty frame after empty frame. On the window, the tall hand mark was still there, a quiet, wet echo of the night. After leaving the tower, I couldn't shake it. My dreams replayed the knocks, the faint shape gliding past my window at home. An unexplained mist handprint on my patrol truck windshield. Once, back at the main station, the radio popped alive and delivered 3 knocks. No voice. It feels like whatever was there is still just outside the frame of my life. Many rangers who've worked these deep forest fire lookout towers tell of visitors, knocks, shifting shadows, unreachable handprints. Maybe it's the spirits of past watchkeepers. Maybe it's something darker. But I know one thing. That night at Lookout 4, I was not alone. And now that you've heard their stories in full, let's step back into the shadows and break down the patterns, signs, and deeper meanings hidden within these encounters. All three stories explore the concept of liminal spaces, zones where reality appears warped or altered. The trail that wasn't on any map features a trail absent from any map, cairns shifting on their own, and pockets of forest that seem unstable. Spaces that do not belong to the familiar, charted world. Whispering at the Switchbacks is set on treacherous hairpin turns above a moving void, a delicate balance between safety and minute danger, a threshold between survival and death, punctuated by a chilling whisper. The night visitor at the fire. Lookout uses the isolated lookout tower as an intersection between the human world and the shadowed unknown outside, marked by unexplainable phenomena, such as knocking and elongated handprints. These spaces force the main characters to face not only physical danger, but also challenges to their perception and mental stability. This is a classic motif in the Nightmare Investigator, emphasizing the borderland between reality and the supernatural, where human senses can be manipulated or deceived. All three stories feature supernatural signals that act as imitations or lures, footsteps that mirror the protagonist, the turn-back command that seizes attention, and the whispered, "Don't look down," visual and auditory bait designed to provoke a dangerous reaction. Knocking in rhythm with the ranger inside the lookout tower and the tap-back game serve as a risky form of supernatural communication. Unexplainable handprints suggest the existence of an invisible entity, one capable of physically interacting with the environment. These auditory and visual cues aren't just unsettling, they are often warnings or intimidation tactics, driving the character into extreme stress. This is a common motif in high-intensity ranger experiences. Isolation, disorientation, and mounting fear are built with clear psychological depth. The instability between logic and instinct forces the characters to choose between fear and survival. Their responses to the unexplained, attempting communication, tap exchange, self-reassurance, or avoidance, pulling back from the cliff edge, create intense internal conflict. Lingering after effects mean that even after the incidents, the characters are still partly held within the supernatural space, highlighting the tale's metaphysical undertones. This is how the Nightmare Investigator delves into the personal experience, rather than simply recounting events, heightening empathy and lasting impact on the listener. All three stories are deeply anchored to the distinctive mountain forest environments of U.S. national parks, while authentically depicting ranger work life and procedure. Regular patrols, waypoint checks, radio reports, and practical knowledge of hazardous terrain add realism and credibility. Physical tools, flashlights, compasses, audio recorders, radios, act as bridges between the tangible, real-world environment and intangible, supernatural interference, creating a constant sense of being monitored and of control slipping away. Use of actual place names strengthens immersion and helps the listener visualize the setting more vividly. These stories are not only horror narratives, but also warnings about respecting nature and the boundaries humans should not cross. They open doors to theories about the existence of supernatural entities, psychic labyrinth spaces deep in the forest, and the possibility that what's found at the scene may never align with maps or scientific expectation. They serve as prime examples of the true inspired style, based on real or reality-inspired experiences, that the Nightmare Investigator and the Rangers of the Dark series aim for, grounded in realism, layered with mystery, engaging both curiosity and fear at the same time. These stories remind us that sometimes the most frightening things aren't what our eyes can see, but what hides in silence, in shadow, and in the very mind that struggles to comprehend it. If there's a single lesson to take from tonight's encounters, it's this. Nature, especially in its most remote corners, carries invisible boundaries. Cross them, even by accident, and you might take something back with you, something that never leaves. Remember, every map has its blank spaces, every wind carries its own voice, and every silent night may have someone, or something, standing just beyond your sight. This is Rangers of the Dark, Until we meet again, deeper in the dark.